Thank you, Chairman. I want to thank all of you for being here. General Keane, I wanted to ask you, and certainly we've seen Iran twice test ballistic missiles this fall, and we know that recently the administration has issued some minimal sanctions, frankly, recently after the hostage release to address those ballistic missile tests. Do you think that their response to these testing of the ballistic missiles post the inking of this agreement, obviously in clear violation of existing UN resolutions, is sufficient? And what does this, as I hear all of you say that no matter where you stand on the Iran agreement, we've got to be quite vigilant going forward. And what do you make of this?
Well, directly answer your question, I think that's a totally inadequate response. These are essentially U.S. unilateral sanctions that we're imposing. This is a violation of UN resolution. The United States should lead an effort in the Security Council to impose tough economic sanctions on that and set that as a bar, certainly, because the Iranians have already told us that they're going to continue to test ballistic missiles. Now, these are medium-range ballistic missiles. They're eventually going to be testing long-range ballistic missiles that will reach all of Europe, and then the Iranians are totally capable of moving to intercontinental ballistic missiles. So here's the 36-year pattern of not doing anything, and look where we are with the Iranians. So I'm of a mind that we have to have tough-minded economic sanctions. They have worked. It is what brought the Iranians to the negotiating table over the nuclear deal, primarily in my judgment. And so, yes, I think every time they take a hostage, there should be some kind of a sanction, and we have refused to do that. We are incentivizing hostage-taking. As the ambassador painfully is aware of, they have been taking hostages since the 1980s. This is a cottage industry for them. They take hostages, we scream and holler about it, we eventually get our hostages back, and tragically they killed CIA Station Chief Buckley, but the reality is we've not stood up to it. And that gets their attention. So I think, yes, we have to take a stand by this and demonstrate to the Iranians and to our allies in the region that despite the nuclear deal we've made with the Iranians, we are not giving up on standing up against their malign behavior in the region and as it impacts our interest and the stability and security of the region. Now, we're going to be there. And when we don't do that, and we just do what we did, these unilateral in sanctions for missile testing, that is inviting more missile testing.
Can I also ask Ambassador Crocker, I was very curious about your statement, which I thought was very direct in answer to Senator Sessions, about where does the United States stand? And as we look at allies like Saudi Arabia, that right now we are giving them the impression that we aren't standing with them. And in fact, we've seen obviously that Iran and Russia, you very clearly laid out, have taken a side here, and it's a side against our interests ultimately, and against peace and stability in the region, which is in, of course, all of our interests. And so I wanted to ask you, in terms of what we should be doing, I see this as connected. So when the Iranians act badly and we don't respond, I think this also gives a message to some of our allies that are concerned about Iran's hegemonic behavior in the region. And so what would you like to see us do with regard to our allies? And how do we turn this around right now to make sure that our allies, who we need at this moment to address the ISIS threat and also threats that can flow from Iran from their malign behavior going forward?
Thank you, Senator. First, make it clear that we are going to stand against malign Iranian activity. I gave a suggestion on what we might look at doing in Syria. In Iraq, I would like to see not Ryan Crocker, but John Kerry go out and anybody but me go out and spend a prolonged period of time out there.
Don't ask us, because we're going to want to send you. But
You know, Condi Rice did this when I was out there. In this administration, I think there have been 2 Secretary of State visits in 7 years to Iraq, one by Secretary Clinton, one by Secretary Kerry. I think that's right, I'm not sure.
Well, that's telling. That's telling.
And so the space we vacated, the Iranians filled. And they are not seeking a unified Iraqi state that is friendly with Iran. They are seeking basically the destruction of an Iraqi state, its division into a Kurdistan, where they'd have heavy influence, a Shiistan with most of the oil that they would effectively control, and a Jihadistan that Islamic State can have, and who cares? So I would start making a major diplomatic push. There is a prime minister we can work with. He hasn't had many options beyond Tehran. I'd like to see us give him one. Those would be a couple of things. And when the secretary needed a break from Baghdad, he could move around to Amman, to Tel Aviv, to Ankara, to Cairo, to Riyadh. Repeat as necessary, and it will be necessary. Your business on this Hill and the business I left has one thing at the center of both. It's about relationships. I am concerned that we have let our relationships atrophy with our friends in the region. We need to take some specific actions to show our resolve. We also need to just take them seriously and engage with them. And finally, I would say, with respect to the ballistic missile tests, I would agree with General Keane, and maybe we're doing this, that we are active in the United Nations with the Security Council. Probably a good time to be a little bit quiet on it until we can do the prep work, but I think we should make the same effort there that we did on the nuclear issue.